Miss Valerie McCartney. Welcome back, Valerie.
How are you, Barry?
Good, good. So how are things in the franchise world today?
Things in the franchise world are busy. How are things in the radio world?
Radio world. Well, radio world is better now if we have you online with us.
Right.
So.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
And you're so busy, that's why you had to call in instead of coming in the studio, right, Valerie?
Doesn't.
So you are active with a new product or process called Franchise Growth Strategies. Tell us about that. What do you do? Okay, we have a crack in our phone connection. Hopefully Valerie will be back with us in just a minute.
Yeah, well, I think she had told me yesterday that she was actually up in L.A. Working on some expansion for one of her clients up there. So she was actually going to step away and actually call us roadside. So that's the kind of work she's doing for her franchise clients up there, one of which is so well known in San Diego. It's the Broken Yolk restaurant chain here, which started with one location in Pacific Beach. And now I think they have in San Diego, I don't know, it's like 15 locations?
Something like that.
Something
I think
like
they have 20
that.
total, but about 11 to 15 in San Diego.
Yeah, and, she's obviously been instrumental in that expansion, which is tremendous for San Diego because of what it's brought here from revenue standpoint and jobs for San Diego and San Diegans. And it's just exciting.
You forgot the food.
Well, how could I forget? I mean, the Broken,
the foodie here.
Yeah, I am, and the Broken Yolk only has the best chicken fried steak, in San Diego with the country gravy and the biscuits.
I'm excited to hear Valerie and what she's doing. The franchise industry has really grown. They've changed it so much now. So not only people with disabilities could get into franchises, but you could be absentee ownership. At one time, you couldn't be an absentee owner. So a lot of people, for investment purposes, are getting into franchise. I know I get a lot of professional athletes who are disabled, and they buy franchises as a form of investment for them with their financial planners.
It's a wonderful thing. I remember I was affiliated with the guys who started Century 21 back in the day and loved to hear all the stories about how they got started. And it's a great thing to have both brand name image as well as the systems to run a business. So even if you're not completely qualified to run a business, a franchise will help you, just tune in all the things that you need and put you together with all the resources. And I think that's what Valerie's working on, pretty strongly.
And the veterans also are starting to look at franchises, and they're giving special opportunities to veterans who want to get in certain franchises. So I hope we get Valerie back online.
I'm here.
Yeah, there she is.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was live. I was just waiting to be patched in.
So let's go back and tell us about franchise growth strategies.
Sure.
What do you do?
Yeah, so basically I help brands that either are franchising already and need some help kind of steering the ship in the right direction, or brands that want to get into franchising. There's, quite a few steps and processes you have to take, both for legal compliance purposes, and wouldn't you know it, there's an airplane going over as we speak. So I do everything from the legal compliance to finding the prospective franchisees to negotiating the deals, and really specialize in, small to medium-sized companies. I used to be director of franchise at El Pollo Loco and Johnny Rockets and some large restaurant chains, and love the business, but I think I love it more doing it for these small to medium-sized businesses.
Interesting. So we've gotten a handle on some of your clients. Any other clients you want to tell us about?
Well, I think I heard you talking about Broken Yolk in the background there. So, so things are going very well there. We've got 13 stores under development, and we've got another 10 or 12 in the pipeline. I've worked with Yogurtland, Robex Juice and Smoothie, Sansai Japanese Grill, which is a brand here in San Diego, as well as a couple other Brugger's Bagel. So some of my clients are actually larger, but the more emergent brands, a couple others, Scooter's Jungle, which is a really fun kids play place up in Orange County in Valencia area. and then a really fun, well, I don't know if you say fun, it's a dry cleaner, but they kind of have a cool concept. It's called OxoCare Cleaners, and they're out of Florida, and you can go and pick up your dry cleaners 24 hours a day. You swipe your card, like a debit card, through the little card reader, and up comes your clothes, just like an ATM that's spitting out your clothes, your clean clothes, instead of spitting out cash. So kind of a neat concept.
Right. Well, let me dig into one thing in particular that has me curious. You know, for people that haven't franchised before and want to, you know, let's talk about what people can look for, what they need to look at to get into a franchise.
Yeah, sure. And when you say to get into it, I'm assuming that you're talking about from the franchisor perspective. So let's take somebody who has a brand or a concept. I'm going to say, let's just say a restaurant, just because I have lots of experience in the restaurant business. Ideally, you want to have a couple units up and operating for a period of at least 1 to 2 years, and because you want proof of concept. You want to have been able to ride out the bumps, see the seasonality or the cyclicality that your business might have. You know, some brands, even in the restaurant space, are highly seasonal. Yogurt's really popular in the warm months, but not 12 months out of the year, particularly as you get outside of Southern California and into, colder climates. So my suggestion, a lot of folks tend to rush to franchising because they see it as a great way to expand their brand quickly. But I say have one or two concepts, one or two of your concepts operating for a year to two. Certainly there is a criteria that says you must be making money. Now, technically the state, who is the overseer of franchising, federally it's the FTC, but in the state of California the state also gets involved. The state actually doesn't require you to make money, but certainly from an ethical perspective, you need to have a concept that is economically viable before you start inviting others to come in and invest in your concept. So economic viability is a big deal.
How big of a brand should they be before they start to franchise?
You can have 2 or 3 units. It's not so much about how many units you have. And again, I keep on saying units because I think of the restaurant world, restaurants, but it might not be a unit per se. It might be, let's say you are an in-home senior care services brand, so you don't necessarily have a brick-and-mortar location, but you want to have 2 to 3 functioning operations, or you can have one, perhaps, but that's been in business for a long, long time. So, for instance, at Broken Yolk, we only have one corporate store, but that corporate store has been in business for 35 years, and it was in business for 27 of those 35 years before we started franchising. So you either need, 2 to 3 units that have been open 2 years or so, or one unit that's been open certainly longer than that. So it's more about economic viability. Are the units making money as opposed to how many of them you have?
You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and FinancialNewsAndTalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kay and Urban Miaris, and our guest is Miss Valerie McCartney from Franchise Growth Strategies. So what kind of, when you're looking at somebody, or when somebody's looking at franchising their business, is that a really big, is that a big task to take on? Is it a very expensive task to take on? What do people look at when they franchise?
Yeah, it can be a sizable undertaking, and the reason that most folks choose to franchise is because you are utilizing other people's resources to help you grow your brand, right? If you've got unlimited capital, you might not choose to franchise. If you, or Steve Ells from Chipotle, before they went public, they had plenty of cash flow. The In-N-Out family, they had plenty of cash flow to build their brand on their own without taking in franchisees. By and large, that's a really rare example. So most people franchise because they want to be able to grow their brand faster than they would be able to do through their own financial resources, and also in locations where they might not really care to personally operate. They might live in California and don't necessarily want to build restaurants out there in Michigan. So that's the reason why people typically choose to franchise their concept, and it can be a sizable undertaking. You need to allocate, frankly, a good $100,000 to get started, and that money is going to go to a couple things. It was what's called the franchise disclosure document, which is a legal thing that you have to have done. That's a big part of what we do for our franchisors. What we do a lot of the legwork on that, and then just give it to an attorney to file. So the state's going to get their cut, the feds are going to get their cut. And then, of course, you have to have the document written, and that's just to become a legally compliant franchisor, but that doesn't mean that people are going to be flooding to your doors. So then the rest of that money gets spent on the things that you do when you launch a business, building a website, creating a marketing campaign, creating a brand awareness such that folks know that you are franchising. So you have to have your legal ducks in a row, and there's a cost associated with that, and then you need to actually market the brand to prospective franchisees, and just like any forms of marketing and advertising, that takes some money.
Now, are you actively involved in each one of those steps to make sure that those funds are managed properly and, in a fiscally responsible way?
Yeah, I absolutely am. I am the franchise consultant that always gets recommended by lawyers, referred by lawyers. I take a pretty conservative approach to franchising, and unfortunately, there's lots of ways that a new franchisor can waste a lot of money early on, and I feel strongly about helping them not waste their money. Things that you don't need, that you will frequently, and I say you, the franchisor, doesn't need immediately, but the folks try to sell them, are things like operations manuals and training manuals and things of that nature. And those can be quite costly, in the thousands of dollars. The reality is you don't need those right now. In the beginning, you need to have your legal ducks in a row, and then start getting some prospective franchisees. And then once you have some folks that you're having viable conversations with, then you can spend money doing those other things. But yeah, I take the brands that I work with, I tend to serve as an outsourced franchise development department, so I handle pretty much everything for them, including the actual negotiating of the franchise deals.
Yeah, Valerie, this is Urban. Franchising is not a do it once and you can cover all states. You have to cover franchising. Am I correct? In each state?
Well, yes and no. So there are 33 states that fall under the FTC guidelines. So you register with the FTC, and you are good to go in 33 states. So that means that there are 17 where there is additional state-level oversight, and that's primarily because, theoretically, it's because the states want to make sure and protect consumers from predatory franchisors. I think also it's because the state likes to get the revenue associated with all the filings as well. But those 13 states you must file individually. It's not terribly expensive to file, though. I mean, the filing in the 13 states runs anywhere from like $125 up to maybe $1,000. So the actual filing fee of the 13 states is not expensive, and frankly, you would want to use the same franchise disclosure documents, franchise agreements, and area development agreements that you send to the feds at the FTC. You're going to use those to do your state-level filings as well, except for you tweak them a little bit to be state-specific. So once you... Yes.
We're starting to run short on time, and I want to make sure that before we wrap up, that people know how to get a hold of you. So how can people find out more about franchise growth strategies?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So the easiest way is just to call me. I'm pretty easy to reach, 858-740-9554.
Great.
I can already think of a few clients, like a certain chocolatier that we had on the show who's got a couple stores.
Yeah, and Valerie, you focus on food, right?
No, not necessarily. Food folks tend to come my way because of my background with some very large restaurant chains, but I'm not solely focused. I love food. I am personally focused on food, but as a company, no, I work with all sorts of franchisors.
Yeah, you and Andrea get along really well, focused on food, but two different perspectives there. So anyway, well, great. I appreciate you calling in and being with us. I wish you all the luck. Hopefully you're safe on the roads up there.
Thank you.
And, let's stay in touch and see what else we can do.
Very good. Thanks. You guys have a great weekend.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thanks, Val. So
bye-bye.
You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working hard to make a difference in our community. This is financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We will be right back after the break with more Homegrown Business Close Up and Mr. Bill Early from Red Cross of San Diego.